Welcome to today's deep dive. We're really thrilled you're taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Our mission here is straightforward. We take a massive stack of reporting, research, technical analysis, and we extract exactly what you need to know to stay well informed.
Right, skipping the dreaded information overload.
Exactly. And today, our focus is laser targeted on a specific stack of cybersecurity reporting. We're drawing mainly from a highly critical article published on March 5th, 2026 by Divya over at the cyber news platform GB Hackers.
It's a really crucial piece of reporting.
It is, but looking at the broader context provided in this source material, I really need to set the scene for you first, because the threat landscape on this particular day is operating at an absolute fever pitch.
Yeah, it's the kind of day that causes severe alert fatigue in security operations centers. The sheer volume of critical, high-level threats hitting the wire simultaneously is just demanding the attention of every network defender out there.
Just to paint a picture of the background noise happening on this exact same day.
Mm-hmm.
We are seeing reports of a new MongoDB vulnerability that allows attackers to completely crash database servers.
And potentially expose critical data. Yeah.
Right. And simultaneously, threat actors are leveraging fake Claude Code downloads to deploy infostealer malware across various systems, which is a classic yet highly effective supply chain and social engineering hybrid attack.
Definitely a bad day at the office.
And it doesn't stop there. Then you have suspected DPRK, North Korean state-sponsored hackers, actively targeting cryptocurrency firms in these highly coordinated surgical strikes.
Going right after cryptographic keys and cloud assets.
Exactly. And on top of all of that, there is a proof of concept exploit that just dropped for a Cisco SD1 zero-day vulnerability. And that one is already seeing active exploitation in the wild.
Any single one of those events would typically dominate the weekly threat intelligence briefings. You have state-sponsored financial theft, critical infrastructure, 0 days being actively exploited, widespread malware campaigns. They're all converging at once. It creates this chaotic environment where security teams are just forced into a brutal triage process.
Well, trying to figure out which fire to put out first.
Exactly.
It is a total minefield out there. But despite all of those flashing red lights, we are pushing the background noise aside to transition to the true focus of today's deep dive. Because cutting through all of that triage is a maximum severity alert that eclipses everything else on the board.
It really does.
We are looking at a critical security flaw in the Cisco Secure Firewall Management Center software, commonly known across the industry as the FMC.
In a world plagued by constant alerts, we really have to frame the stakes of this specific advisory clearly. This isn't a vulnerability you just put on a schedule for next month's patch cycle.
Right.
This is an alert that demands immediate drop-everything attention. And the reason is that this vulnerability carries a CVSS score of 10.0. For the security professionals listening, you know that is the absolute maximum severity level on the common vulnerability scoring system scale. A 10.0 means the vulnerability checks every single worst-case scenario box across the scoring metrics.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because seeing a 10.0 score is enough to induce panic in any enterprise network administrator. But I want to make sure we look under the hood. Take us through the specific technical metrics that push this flaw all the way to that maximum score.
Sure. So the vulnerability is officially tracked in the National Vulnerability Database as CVE 2026-2131. Categorically, it is a remote code execution flaw, or an RCE.
Got it.
When we analyze why this hits a perfect 10.0, we are looking at a perfect storm in the CVSS attack vector metrics. First, the attack vector is network-based, meaning it is entirely remote.
So no physical access required?
None at all. The threat actor doesn't need physical access to your data center or even local network access if the interface is exposed. They can launch the exploit from a server on the other side of the planet.
That's terrifying.
And second, it requires zero privileges. The attacker does not need to possess stolen credentials. They don't need a compromised user account. And there is absolutely no requirement to brute force a login portal.
So the authentication mechanisms are rendered completely irrelevant here.
Completely irrelevant.
The attacker is just interacting directly with the system without presenting any credentials whatsoever.
That's the core issue. And the final metric that seals that 10.0 rating is the impact on confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
The CIA triad.
Right. This flaw allows that unauthenticated remote attacker to execute arbitrary code with root privileges. As we know, root access provides absolute, unrestricted control over the underlying operating system.
They own the box.
They own it. The attacker can view, alter, or destroy any file, deploy persistent backdoors, and completely rewrite the system's configuration.
It's not just picking a lock. It's bypassing the security guards entirely, walking straight into the control room and handing the intruder the master keys to the entire enterprise network.
That's a great way to put it.
And the irony here is quite stark. We're talking about the Firewall Management Center. This is the centralized appliance whose entire purpose is to manage network security policies. It deploys intrusion prevention rules, and it monitors traffic across an organization's entire fleet of firewalls.
Right, it's the brains of the operation.
Exactly. If an attacker gains root access to the FMC, they essentially own the central nervous system of your network security infrastructure. They can quietly alter firewall rules to open VPN tunnels. They can disable logging to cover their tracks, or push malicious configurations down to every connected firewall in the enterprise environment.
To take that architectural reality a step further, compromising the security management appliance often gives threat actors the clearest, most trusted map of the entire enterprise network. It is the ultimate vantage point for lateral movement.
Which brings us to the mechanics of the exploit itself. What is the actual mechanism driving this total system compromise?
Let's get into it.
The reporting from GB Hackers points to the underlying weakness, categorizing it specifically as CWE 502. The text defines the root cause as the insecure deserialization of user-supplied Java byte streams occurring within the web-based management interface.
What's fascinating here is the core concept of insecure deserialization, particularly in enterprise Java environments. CWE 502 has historically been one of the most devastating and persistent classes of vulnerabilities in modern web applications.
I feel like we see deserialization flaws pop up constantly in these major breaches.
We do. In object-oriented programming, serialization is necessary to convert complex data structures or objects into a byte stream. This is done so they can be transmitted over a network or stored.
It packages the data up for transport.
Exactly. Deserialization is simply the reverse process. The application takes that byte stream and reconstructs it back into a usable object in memory.
Okay, so where does the fatal flaw occur?
It occurs when an application blindly trusts that incoming byte stream without strictly sanitizing or validating the input before the reconstruction process begins.
Right. Because the application is operating under the assumption that the incoming data stream is benign and properly formed.
Yes.
It essentially lacks the necessary skepticism. So, because the FMC web interface is expecting a standard Java object, it initiates the deserialization process without verifying the integrity or the origin of the payload.
That blind trust is exactly what the attacker leverages. Instead of sending a benign expected data object, the threat actor crafts a highly specific, malicious Java object.
A weaponized payload.
Right. And because the vulnerability exists within the web-based management interface, the attacker simply transmits this weaponized byte stream directly to the target FMC.
And because this happens at the web interface layer, how does the actual attack sequence play out? Let's walk through it step by step from the moment that payload hits the FMC.
It is a remarkably silent and elegant takeover. Step 1, the moment the FMC interface receives the crafted byte stream, the underlying Java virtual machine begins parsing and deserializing the data.
The system is just doing what it was programmed to do.
Exactly. Step 2, because the application lacks input validation, the malicious payload is instantiated into memory.
And here is where it gets dangerous.
Step 3 is all about timing. The execution of the attacker's embedded instructions happens during the parsing phase. This is fundamentally prior to any user authentication checks taking place.
It successfully bypasses all authentication protocols.
Completely.
The application is weaponizing itself by following the attacker's blueprint. And it does so before the system's security protocols even get a chance to ask for a username or password.
And then step 4, the payload executes. The unauthorized commands run, and the attacker instantly elevates to root level, gaining total control over the management appliance.
The entire sequence happens at machine speed.
Completely bypassing the normal security gates. The attacker transforms an unauthenticated web request into total appliance control.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. When you have an unauthenticated, zero-click CVSS 10.0 remote code execution flaw in a major enterprise security appliance, the natural expectation is that we are reading about this because a massive ransomware syndicate is currently using it to tear across the globe.
Right, locking up Fortune 500 networks.
But the origin story of this specific CVE is actually a significant silver lining. It wasn't discovered by malicious threat actors probing external attack surfaces, and it wasn't uncovered during a post-breach incident response investigation.
No, the reporting highlights that this vulnerability was successfully identified during internal security testing.
Which is huge.
It was discovered by Keno Kelly, a security researcher working within the Cisco Advanced Security Initiatives Group, or ASIG.
Finding a flaw of this magnitude internally is exactly the kind of proactive security research you want to see from a major vendor.
It really shifts the timeline in favor of the defenders.
It does. Because of that internal discovery, what is the current exploitation status out in the real world, according to the official telemetry?
The official advisory from the Cisco Product Security Incident Response Team, the PSRT, states clearly that there is currently no evidence of public exploitation or malicious use in the wild.
That is a massive relief.
It is. As of this publication date, threat actors have not yet weaponized this specific deserialization flaw against live enterprise targets.
That provides a crucial, albeit temporary, window of opportunity for network defenders. But the clock is undoubtedly ticking.
Oh, absolutely.
Now that the vulnerability is public knowledge, reverse engineers and threat actors will be actively analyzing the patch to develop functional exploits, which leads us directly to evaluating the actual attack surface. Who is realistically in the crosshairs for this kind of attack?
Because the vulnerability specifically targets the web-based management interface of the FMC, an organization's immediate attack surface is entirely dependent on their network architecture and positioning.
Okay, break that down for us.
If an administrator has misconfigured their environment and exposed the FMC web management component directly to the public internet, their risk profile is astronomically high.
They're just hanging a high-value target on the perimeter.
Exactly, waiting for automated scanners and nation-state actors to discover it.
While exposing a management interface to the open internet violates almost every fundamental principle of network architecture, it is an operational reality that still happens with alarming frequency.
It happens more than any of us would like to admit.
But let's assume an organization is adhering to strict best practices. They have thoroughly segmented their network and limited management access to a highly isolated, trusted internal subnet. Does that internal positioning negate the threat entirely?
It mitigates the immediate threat of random automated internet scanning, but it certainly does not negate the vulnerability.
Why is that?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of modern enterprise security, we have to acknowledge the reality of assumed breach environments.
Right. Assuming the attacker is already inside.
Yes, the vulnerability remains fully exploitable from within the corporate perimeter.
Meaning if an advanced persistent threat or even a basic ransomware operator has already bypassed the perimeter defenses.
Precisely. If a threat actor has already gained an initial foothold, say, perhaps they compromised a standard user's workstation through a spear phishing campaign, or maybe they exploited a forgotten IoT device in a conference room.
They are now operating from within that trusted internal boundary.
Yes. From that compromised endpoint, the attacker can conduct lateral movement. They scan the internal network, locate the internally facing FMC interface, and execute the deserialization exploit.
Just like that, the game is over.
In an instant. They escalate their access from a low-level compromised workstation to root control of the entire enterprise firewall management layer.
And we also have to account for insider threats here too.
Very true. The internal network is ultimately only as secure as the weakest authenticated endpoint that has routing access to the management subnet.
So what does this all mean for these security teams and IT administrators navigating this right now? Let's clarify exactly who is affected, who isn't, and the operational reality of the remediation process.
That's the most critical part of the advisory.
First, looking at the affected systems. The GB Hackers reporting is very specific. This critical vulnerability directly impacts Cisco Secure FMC software, as well as Cisco Security Cloud Control, the SEC firewall management systems.
Right.
And a critical note from the source is that it affects these systems regardless of the active device configuration.
The configuration state of your managed firewalls is totally irrelevant here. If you are running the vulnerable versions of the management software, the application layer is exposed to the deserialization attack.
But there is some good news.
Yes, the vendor has also provided clear parameters on what is safe. Cisco officially confirmed that the Secure Firewall Adaptive Security Appliance software, the ASA line, and the Secure Firewall Threat Defense software, the FTD line, both of those are completely unaffected by this specific CVE.
So the firewalls themselves, the actual appliances inspecting the network traffic, do not contain the vulnerable Java component. The flaw is isolated strictly to the management overlay.
That distinction is vital for incident response teams trying to scope their exposure. You don't need to patch your entire fleet of firewalls for this specific CVE, only the management center.
Which brings us to the remediation phase. And this is where the operational nightmare truly begins for on-premise administrators. Because I have to emphasize a terrifying detail from the text.
It's the part no admin wants to read.
There are absolutely no temporary workarounds available to mitigate this vulnerability.
When you look at standard vulnerability management, a workaround is often a lifesaver.
It buys you time.
Exactly. It allows a team to disable a vulnerable feature, block a specific port, or apply a custom intrusion prevention rule to neutralize the attack vector, all while they wait for an approved maintenance window to apply a full patch.
But you can't do that here.
No, because this flaw resides within the core web-based management interface itself, the very mechanism administrators use to interact with the appliance. You cannot simply turn it off without entirely crippling your ability to manage the network.
The lack of workarounds forces the issue immediately. You can't apply a temporary fix, which means patching is the singular, non-negotiable line of defense.
You have to patch.
Organizations are required to rapidly apply the official vendor patches detailed in the March 2026 Cisco Secure Firewall Software Security Advisory Bundled publication.
The source outlines a strict, three-pronged mitigation strategy. The primary prong is the software update. Network security teams must upgrade their on-premise Cisco Secure FMC deployments to the latest patch release.
But they can't just blindly install the update, right?
No, because enterprise Cisco environments are highly complex. They're often running various interconnected software versions. The official guidance mandates that network teams utilize the official Cisco software checker tool.
That's a crucial step.
This utility is critical for identifying the optimal validated upgrade path. It ensures teams deploy the fixed software version without inadvertently breaking compatibility with their managed devices.
Implementing core infrastructure upgrades is rarely a seamless process, which is why that specific upgrade path verification is so important.
Absolutely.
The second prong of the mitigation strategy focuses heavily on access control.
This circles back to our analysis of the attack surface. Both during the preparation for the patch deployment and as a prominent architectural standard post-patch, organizations must strictly restrict web management interface access.
Keep it off the public internet.
Exactly. It should be segmented into isolated, highly monitored administrative networks. The advisory makes it explicitly clear. Never expose these management interfaces to the public internet.
And the third prong of the mitigation plan introduces a really fascinating dynamic regarding cloud management. The SaaS advantage.
This is one of the most interesting takeaways from the report.
The source notes that for organizations utilizing Cisco Security Cloud Control, the SCC deployments, there is actually no action needed.
None at all.
Dealing with a CVSS 10.0 vulnerability, where the official guidance for a subset of users is simply to do nothing, is quite a stark contrast.
It perfectly illustrates the operational advantages of the software-as-a-service architecture. Cisco Security Cloud Control is a SaaS-delivered management platform. Under this model, Cisco's internal engineering teams are responsible for the back-end infrastructure, the maintenance, and the security patching.
So the customers don't even have to lift a finger.
Customers utilizing SCC do not need to schedule emergency downtime. They don't need to run software checker tools or manually push firmware updates. The platform automatically receives and applies the necessary security upgrades at the back-end level, effectively neutralizing the threat transparently.
It is a massive operational shift. You have on-premise administrators facing canceled weekends and emergency change advisory board meetings to push critical updates with zero workarounds.
While the SaaS customers are already shielded by automated vendor remediation.
It really highlights the hidden operational costs of maintaining on-premise management infrastructure versus offloading that burden to a cloud service.
Regardless of the deployment model, however, the fundamental imperative from the reporting is clear. With a CVSS score of 10.0 and no workarounds, prompt patching, whether executed manually by internal teams or automated by the vendor, is the only way to prevent threat actors from weaponizing this deserialization flaw against your infrastructure.
As we wrap up today's deep dive, let's briefly synthesize the core takeaways you need to hold on to.
A quick recap is always good.
We've analyzed a maximum severity, CVSS 10.0 remote code execution vulnerability, officially tracked as CVE 2026-2131, It impacts Cisco Secure, FMC, and SEC management systems.
The root cause being CWE 502.
Right, the insecure deserialization of user-supplied Java byte streams, allowing an unauthenticated attacker to execute malicious instructions and gain root control over the appliance.
And it was proactively discovered by Cisco's internal ASIG team.
Thankfully. And currently, there is no evidence of active exploitation in the wild. But crucially, there are 0 temporary workarounds available. If you manage an on-premise Cisco Secure FMC, executing a patch via the official Cisco software checker tool is your absolute only defense.
This raises an important question, something we should all critically reflect on beyond the scope of just this single Cisco vulnerability.
I agree, it goes much deeper.
Throughout this discussion, we've continually returned to the core mechanism of this exploit, an enterprise application blindly trusting external data without strict verification.
That blind trust.
As you evaluate your own network environments, your CI/CD pipelines, and the vast complexity of your interconnected digital infrastructure, you have to ask yourself, how much of your core technology stack is still operating on this fragile assumption of blind trust?
That is a phenomenal point to leave off on.
What other routine processes, automated data streams, or external API integrations in your daily tech stack are just waiting to be critically questioned? In modern cybersecurity, the boundary between seamless application functionality and catastrophic system compromise is often just a single, unverified assumption.
And that is a reminder to continuously audit the assumptions built into our networks. A massive thank you to you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive today. We know your time is highly valuable, and taking the time to understand the deeply technical why and how behind the headlines, rather than just reacting to the surface-level noise, is the ultimate shortcut to remaining a truly well-informed professional in this field.
Keep asking those hard questions.
Keep challenging that blind trust in your environments, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.